My guest today is Chris Marola, a writer and filmmaker from Long Island, New York, and we are here to discuss his first feature, a religious coming-of-age comedy titled Lemonade Blessing, an official selection at this year's Tribeca Film Festival. Now, Lemonade Blessing is about a child of divorce that is sent to private Catholic school by his devout mother. His faith and morality are tested when he falls in love with a girl who requires him to commit, sacrilegious acts to further their relationship. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome filmmaker Chris Marola and his feature film, Lemonade Blessing, to the show. Welcome, Chris.
Woo! Thank you. So happy to be here. Let's do it, dude.
Man, hey, where did the idea of Lemonade Blessing come from?
I think in 2019, this image popped into my head of like a Eucharist wafer, like hitting the top of a toilet bowl. And there's a boy with his pants scrunched around his legs looking down at it. And I had no idea what that meant, honestly. A couple years later, I was sitting down to write my first screenplay. And I was just writing down a bunch of memories from my upbringing. And I noticed there was a common theme of guilt over becoming a sexual person, becoming an adult. And I realized that I could find a way to externalize feelings of sexual guilt and connect them with the sacrilegiosity by, linking them to the dares so that there could be a measurable physical way of seeing the way that John's soul is sort of descending throughout the narrative. I thought that would be a strong narrative device. And so I think it kind of just went from there, basically. I wrote it out of order, fictionalized some elements, snipped around, restructured, and then I had a first draft and I just kept rewriting it, basically.
Well, the thing that I've noticed about this film is that you bring in the innocence of teenagers, even though they're trying to act tough and like they know it all and they're cool, but we see right through that in this film, which makes it funny. But you even have that there's these interactions not only between the teenagers at the Catholic school, but this film goes much deeper because it shows that parental upbringing shapes one's belief, but also the lack of teaching when it comes to the things like the birds and the bees. I mean, this film was not only about coming of age, it actually showed the flaws in the areas of parenthood, correct?
Absolutely. Childhood development is something I think about a lot. Like I studied psych in undergrad, and I just think so much about the ways in which we are the result of our temporal moment, right? Our culture, the media we consume, the media our parents consumed, right? Like even following generations are influenced by the things that influence the generation of parents who raised them. And this whole like turtles all the way down thing where we're always trying to piece out nature versus nurture. Who are we? Why are we? I was just so interested in that. And so to me, it felt necessary to examine the homes of both of our protagonists in order to give viewers a hint as to why they are the way they are and why they might be attracted to one another.
See, this is what I like. In a way, you did double character development because it was not only John and Lilith, but you also brought their parents into the mix because they were the ones shaping the children. And with Lilith's parents and John's parents, they proved a few things. Controlling your kids' every move is a move based on fear. So if you keep closing in the walls of your child, eventually it becomes a kettle with a lid on it. And it will blow up at some point, which we see that in this film. And you have this very thing with John and his mother, but also with John and Lilith. But then it was Lilith's anger is really a cry for help because her dad is controlling. And she had a perfect line in this film that her mom is a face with no mouth. That spoke volumes of her home life.
Oh, I'm so glad you feel that way. Yeah, I really, it was almost a regret. I was like, I wish I could have gotten the grandparents in too. It would have been too long a movie. But I had that thought too. I was like, am I not going deep enough? I should have had grandparents. But I was like, I don't have enough space in the movie to get all three generations in one. Maybe that's for a television show or something. I don't know. Um, yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I,
but you had a lot of funny interactions, especially with John and Lilith, but also with John's friends. I love the fact that really they were all insecure, but they try to act like they know all about women, but they're all virgins. I mean, there was a little bit of this SUPERBAD vibe in the mix of the kids, which was freaking awesome. So it had me laughing because it made me think back to my days as a youth where my friends were doing the exact same thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's an interesting commonality between Lilith and John's friends. They're both self-mythologizing, right? They're both trying to build up a narrative of who they are, try to build up a tapestry of sexual experience that does not exist. John's the only one who's like, uh, I heard if you're shaved, you're really excited. Like he has no fucking idea. Everyone else is like, oh no, this is the way it is. I really like that. I think it's so accurate. We're always trying to puff our chests out. That's just kind of because it's so hard to admit, like, I'm hurt. I have no idea what's going on. I'm scared.
But there was something in this film that I hope everybody notices because this is really a period piece. And one of the things that I love that you did by making it a period piece, because when we look back at some of those really old video games,
Yeah.
you kept it to where there was no Twitter, no Facebook, no Instagram. There was full blown human interaction in this film, which I think a lot of youth today have no idea what that actually is. And you actually show what real life is before, well, the smartphone was invented.
Yeah, I mean, God, we could have a whole conversation about how harmful the rise of algorithmic based social media has been for humanity since it hit the scene in 2015. But I don't know if you read Jonathan Haidt's last book, The Anxious Generation, but we have really ample evidence that like depression, anxiety, suicidality, and eating disorders are up substantially in young men and young women. And we've controlled for the variables, and these social media companies, which essentially are designed to keep us looking, scrolling, wanting, looking, hoping. It's like it's terrible, and I'm really happy that I was just at the tail end of the generation where maybe that wasn't super normal. All that we had in the film was Ask FM, which is where people would post their profiles, and anonymous people could ask you questions, and you would answer them. That's really the only social media page in the film, and I feel really, really lucky about that because even now, I just dude, every minute spent on social media is so bad. And it's such a paradox because we need social media to promote ourselves, and yet it's so bad for us. I really feel like in another couple of years it'll be like, wait, they used to do smoking indoors? You used to be able to smoke on a plane? It'll be like, wait, kids had unfettered access to algorithmic based social media? I think Australia just outlawed it up to the age of 16, and I think that's landmark legislation that the whole world needs to follow.
Oh, I agree because in your film, you remind us what true innocence used to look like. And we
Hmm.
don't see that. And this film shows it, but you do it in a very funny way. It's kind of like the funny scene with the parents and John and Lilith when, praying over dinner. And all of a sudden you see these innuendos going on at the table during the prayer. That is absolutely hilarious. But Lilith, she's bold, which her boldness actually comes from insecurity. She's very sacrilegious, but she doesn't take religion very seriously because to her it's just a set of rules to follow that limited her freedom of choice in life. And you bring that forth, but in contrast, it makes John nervous.
Absolutely. Lilith really is viewing religion as an extension of her father and his sort of dominion over her at home. That's why, she literally names herself Lilith, which is like Adam's first wife who rejected being married to him. And it's kind of interesting because therein lies the problem is that teenagers often become the exact opposite of what their parents want them to be, right? You either become what your parents want or you become the exact opposite. But part of growing up is realizing that there's a third option, which is take what you like and leave the rest. So in naming herself Lilith, she paradoxically resigns herself to the Catholic faith she's rejecting because she's still allowing the Catholic faith to establish the paradigm, the perspective that she's approaching it from.
Yeah, well, yeah, her birth name is Rachel. So
Hmm.
it's a complete opposite between being a Rachel, which is most likely coming out of the Bible, and then
Yeah.
Lilith, which for her anti-Bible. But there's a scene. I'm not going to give away this very. It's a powerful scene, but you have this element of this scene that I really loved because how many of us have ever done it? And we've done it more than once. You open up the Bible, you place your finger on the first scripture, and hopefully that it's something that this is an answer from God. And I love that you included it because we always made the joke that if you open up your Bible and you stick your finger on the scripture in the New Testament, and it says, and then he went out and hung himself. That's really the wrong one to hit. But but
Yes.
but it was so funny because I'm like millions of us have done this, and you literally showed it. So I thank you for that, Chris.
I am so happy. You were the only person who's ever commented on the scene, and I thought it was such a fun device because basically, just from a narrative perspective, you can't have anything come easy, right? So, just to speak abstractly, not to spoil. So, John needs to get an object; he needs to do something to it, right? If you
Right.
were doing the easiest version of that script possible, he'd find the object in his mom's house and then he'd be done with it, right? But no, he has to get the object from a third party. He has to barter with them to do something. And then when he's about to do the thing, he's so conflicted, he tries to find another strategy, which is to get the object himself to tell him to do it. And I just think it's so fun to like find ways to elongate the pressure, elongate the struggle. I'm so glad you love that scene. I love that scene and I love the music. Our composer, oh, I love Daniel so much. That scene
Well,
rips, dude.
here's the thing. We're not just physical beings, we're spiritual beings. And John in that scene, literally, he is wanting God to reach out of heaven and go, stop. And
Yeah,
and
yeah.
there was none of this force, there was none of this pressure to make him stop. He was trying to find a way, and eventually we'll just let it. We're not going to spoil it, ladies and gentlemen. You'll just have to see the scene, and you'll see how it plays out. And when it plays out, there's a second part of that scene, and boy, that's that's the only part of this film when you go, oh. And I'll just leave it there. I'll leave it there because I want everybody to see this film when it's finally made public, when it's made public to the general public. We'll say it that way. But I have got to bring up one of the most. We've already covered most of the storyline, but here's what I want to do. My favorite part of this film is your cinematography.
Oh my God, I'm so glad. Let's talk about it. Harrison's
Okay.
amazing.
First of all,
Harrison's
I
amazing.
thank you for doing this in 35 millimeter. Wow. Absolutely stunning. So I thank you for
I
that.
have
Now,
wait. I have to spoil something. I have to spoil something. Believe it or not, it was actually shot on digital, and we generated an overlay which would give it the look of 35 millimeter. But the overlays are so good. What our DP did was basically if celluloid were to be hit by light, there's three colors inside the celluloid, right? And what he did was he did a blue grain pass on the film so that only the blue grain would bloom. And that was kind of like the extra little step that we needed to really make it look like it was shot on film. It
you
wasn't though. I'm so sorry. Yeah.
you pulled I was on IMDb and it says 35 millimeter, but here's the thing.
Oh, did
You
it?
did
Oh,
it
I don't know who put that.
you did exactly what they did with the holdovers. They wanted to use film so bad, but they went digital, went into post, figured out a way to give it that 1970s look. And I was just like, when I saw yours, I went, the holdovers. That's the first thing I thought of when I looked at the cinematography. But here's the coolest thing is that, and this is what really, because I go beyond just the story and the cinematography, there's parts of it that have to fit together. So there's that scene when John said at the dinner table that he didn't believe in God, and his mother's
Mhm.
like freaking out. He had an outburst, but it was the camera shot that was focused on John that was so absolutely perfect that I had to rewind it and I go, wait a minute, did I just see that? Replayed it. It was where when he had the outburst, then you had his whole eye was shadowed as if the light had gone out of him. Was that on purpose?
Yes, yes, absolutely. We played with low lighting in the film. Anytime John was progressing further and further down his path, he was losing a sense of himself. And so, our amazing gaffer, Danny and Harrison, they came up with a lighting plan to essentially deprive his eyes of more and more light as the film goes on. So, there's a phone call with Lilith later on in the film. You'll notice his face is totally in shadow. There's a fight scene at a Suite 15 in a bathroom stall. Their eyes are deprived of a lot of light there. So I'm so glad you noticed that. Hell yeah, dude, you're getting into the real
Well, see
deep
that
cuts here.
that's the thing because this film has an underlying religious overtone. It's it's going to be it's going to be light versus dark. It's going to be
Mhm.
good versus evil. And this comes out spectacularly through the cinematography. But I also noticed this little element which I absolutely loved. The lighted globe in the background signifies the light of the world. And I went,
Yeah.
That's when I see a smart director knows that even the little element that most people will never notice, it's there because it's part of the story. It's giving the audience a hint. And I love that in the background.
I'm so happy, dude. I'm so happy you were reading into this film the way we were hoping, dude. That's fantastic. That's awesome.
Well, the overall cinematography is a beautiful, again, it's a beautiful combination of light and dark. Of course, it signifies the battle of good and evil, even free will, because even
Mhm.
Lilith brings it up. And that's what John was struggling with because God gave us free will. He gave Adam and Eve, He allowed them to make their own choice, and they picked the wrong choice in the end and get kicked out of the Garden of Eden. So all of these elements in this film are there for everyone to see. And I have to ask, I mean, because of some of the sacrilegious acts within this film, have you gotten any blowback?
I was most concerned about how my mom would react to it because obviously she's a really important person to me, and she's very devout. She was very kind. She said, I want to see the final film when it's done, so I don't want to see any previews. But here's the thing: is we shot 4 days at her house, so she was to some extent subjected to the filming. And there's a part where an object goes in a sandwich, and then the mom character is about to eat it, and my mom was like, "What is that?" And then Janine told her what it was, and my mom was like, "You're gonna have to go." She's like, "You are gonna have to leave." So I had to do a company move to my dad's house on our last day of shooting to shoot some of the most heinous scenes, like anything involving a toilet or a bathtub. It was all shot at my dad's house, and I didn't know. I thought my dad was like gambling in Vegas or something, and he came back at like 2 a.m. and he was like, "What the hell is all of this stuff?" Like, what are you doing? I was like, "I have two more shots left. I have two more shots left. It's fine. It's fine." And he was like, "All right, I'm going to bed. Whatever."
I, I love it, but I've got to bring up one of the most profound lines in the whole film come from John. And he says,
Mm.
I don't have a me part, and I
Oh,
don't
I'm
know
so glad
what
you loved
that
that
looks
line.
like.
Oh, I'm so glad. That's my favorite line too. I love that line. Yeah.
I mean, how many young people will relate to that? They're trying to please mom, please dad, please the teachers or whatever they're part of, maybe their friends, but then in the end, they forget about themselves.
These are universal struggles. I mean, human beings are social creatures, and the tension between arriving for ourselves and standing up for the things that we believe and developing the things we believe versus paying homage to the people who put in so much labor and so much time into raising us. We want to show them proper love and proper care. But how do we do that while still being honest with ourselves? And how do you even start being honest with yourself? Like what is the self, And these are really, really hard questions that, no one film can answer. But I definitely think that Lemonade was an act of self-dissection in that sense. I was just really trying to examine to some degree, like why am I the way I am? Like who am I? What's going on?
Well, you've got to tell me how you cast Jake Ryan. This kid is, he's like the next Jonah Hill. He's the next Robert Downey Jr. He has got such a huge career ahead of him. I cannot wait to see what he does next and as he grows.
He is outstanding. I saw him first in eighth grade in 2018, and I just felt so seen by his character. He was so honest, forthright, in a way that was just delicious. He's always dribbling with words. He's always just revealing, revealing, revealing. And I was like, that's me, dude. I'm always blabbing about myself, and I always feel like a little, I can't sit still, and like Jake is so much that. And so he was on the pitch deck, you know what I mean? Like I really was like pretty set on him early on, and I was so stoked when he tried out for it. And then, Sky we found through a more traditional casting process, and their chemistry read was absolutely unbelievable. I was floored. I mean, I gotta tell you, it's really, really easy to direct people when they are essentially the characters, and this was a really easy directing gig from a performance standpoint. It's very, very few notes. I didn't have to figure out a lot on set. Rehearsal was a blast. It was totally explorative, and we were just ripping on set. It was great.
I laughed with the blonde kid that always fell asleep.
Dude, Gary, we love Gary, but he's coming from a working class background. He has to take two buses to get to school, so he doesn't have enough sleep. The man is suffering from basically like narcolepsy, basically. You know what I mean? Like
I thought it was so funny because I kept thinking, okay, on his acting resume, he's going to say, I played this kid and I slept through the whole movie.
And he was so funny. I have to tell you, when we did improvised takes, he would perk up and he'd get in there. He had some really good improv in the film. I love him. He's oh god, James is awesome. He's
But
so cool.
you cast this film as perfect because every character fit, and I think the only one that I truly recognized was John's mother.
Oh yeah, you
I
recognize
can't remember
Janine?
where I've seen her,
Mega.
but I know I've seen
She
her.
was in Inside Llewyn Davis. She was in what's that? The Gillian Flynn show. Was it Utopia? She was also in Apples Never Fall and The Woman in the Window. Those might have been some of the things. But yeah, dude, it was so important to, during the casting process, we had people that were presented to us who had 10 to 15 million followers across all their social media. And that's the heuristic, right? Okay, I want to make money. I want to be safe. I'm going to cast two hot, popular people. They're going to make out. It's going to be great. And it's like, there's no truth to that. And why would I want to ride on the coattails of a star when I could hopefully, maybe make a star by doing something really honest and hopefully iconic with this person, I mean, I don't know what kind of reception the film's going to have, but like, I knew that like I would have rather taken a risk doing something that felt sincere and kind of vulnerable. Like, hey, let's just find people who resemble actual people, who act like actual people, who are the actual characters. I will not have to dance around slotting an A-lister into a role that's not perfect for them.
Well, here's the great thing. The cast is perfect. This is the type of film that we're going to see all of these characters have incredible careers if they keep pushing their acting. Because every
Yeah.
single one of them, I can see all of these kids in other roles and other movies, and as they grow to become adults, that's what we want to see. This is that type of film, and it kind of reminds you of, you know, this film is not The Breakfast Club, but it reminds you of seeing a cast of characters that they all become famous after that major role. This is that type of film that I think for a lot of those young actors in this film, this is the stepping stone to something bigger.
I truly hope so because they're all incredible. And I'd love to work with them again too. Like I have plans. Me and Jake have plans, so I'm excited. I want to keep going, man.
Well,
I
keep pushing
really
it.
hope so.
Well,
I
tell me
will.
what does it feel like to be an official selection at the Tribeca Film Festival?
Absolutely positively wacky, surreal. I'm dissociated and confused. It's crazy. I'm like, what? I sometimes I just sit and I think about the numbers of it. I was like, okay, so narrative competition, there's 12 films and there was 13,500 submissions. It's like these are the law of large numbers dictates that you can try your best, but there's a lot of luck involved in this life. So I have no idea, why this happened. I think sometimes in life there's just good luck and bad luck, and I'm very, very lucky to have this type of good luck. I mean, we all did our best, and we're all very proud of what we did, but that was no guarantee of something like this. So I don't even have words. It's pretty crazy.
Well, I want to see this film with a theatrical release because that's how great this film is. And ladies and gentlemen, Lemonade Blessing is an incredible coming of age film, a mixture of adolescence, innocence, religion, morality, parenting, and even mentorship. When parents have kids, they are never given a manual on how to raise them. They're given an empty canvas and told to wing it. Lemonade Blessing shows this perfectly, but we see the other side of things that John and Lilith pretending in the art of love, but end up finding themselves and breaking out of their own parents' idea of growing up. The film, it's funny, it's heartfelt, it's sacrilegious, but never blasphemous. Now, watching two young people navigate their ideas, their hormones, and their parents in Lemonade Blessing is very enjoyable to watch. There's a bit of the holdovers, there's a bit of SUPERBAD, and let's not forget, the cinematography is off the chart. So if you are a true cinephile, the cinematography makes you fall in love with this film even more. The use of light and shadows emphasizes the battle between good and evil. It's just beautiful. Absolutely love this film. You will too. And Chris, I want to thank you so much for sharing this masterpiece with me today because
Oh my
I want to
god.
see this film go not just through the film festival circuit. I want to see this reach the theaters, because this is the type of film we need back into the movie theater so we can enjoy real movies again.
Dude, that is unbelievably kind. I don't even know how to react. Thank you. That's super, super, super kind of you. And yes, I am absolutely all in on getting a theatrical release. So let's see what we can do. Let's go to Tribeca and let's see who our distributor ends up being.
Hey, there you go. Hey, and again, ladies and gentlemen, when Lemonade Blessing finally comes available to you, this is a must-see film. You're probably just going to need to write it down, make a list of films to see. This is one of them. So I want to thank you for watching and listening, ladies and gentlemen. And please visit us at bondoncinema.com, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and don't forget to check out our Bond on Cinema Prime show. And as for me, you're either going to see me at the movies or from the red carpet.
Yeah, I don't have a crush, okay? I have a girlfriend.
Oh. Okay. Oh. It's a good girl. She's Catholic.
Say Jesus for me.
Hey, Dad, guess what?
Hey, buddy, what's up?
I have a girlfriend.
Hey, same here. High five.
Oh, yeah, awesome. Good for you.